Dan RadioStyle. I hope everybody out there's having themselves a great day. I think the big key right off the bat, just to see if you're interested, the concept of trying to manifest, trying to make something happen, trying to get it to happen, if you're coming at it from this sort of doing stance, this I'm making it happen stance, rather than we're coming into an alignment. I think that's a different way of thinking, right? Like I am becoming one with it and me, and right, versus a blending, right, if you will, versus making this happen. And by my actions, I'm making it happen. I'm making it pop up. This is probably a great video for you. If I titled this the way the actual chapter is titled, Chapter 21, and the Power of Awareness, I'd probably be a clickbait because it led me astray. It was not what I thought. So the title of my video, I think, is more akin to what this chapter is about. But what he calls it is free will. And that is not really what he's talking about. What he's talking about is the ability, one, inspired action. A lot of us wonder, how will I know? How will I know? How will I know? One, you will know, just you will. And then when you're looking for it, trust me, you won't find it. So the more you're looking for something, you will not see it. The moment you stop looking for it, everyone knows this adage, the second you stop looking for it, that's when you find it. Or it's the last place you look, which is kind of a stupid one, really, right? Like, because I found it. Why the hell would I look anymore? That's silly. No, it was the second to last place I looked because I found it. And then I was like, I wonder if it's also some other place. Like, who the hell does that? No one. So Goddard gets into a fascinating thing here about free will and a question that so many of us ask. Can we speed it up? Will I miss the inspired action? How can I do more to make this happen faster? How can I get this to happen by next month on the 1st? How can I get this to happen by... This is a place where we gotta back off. That energy, that urgency, that separation, I don't know, it's whatever that energy is and whatever the right word is to describe it, especially for each and every one of us having slightly different understandings, it's that forcing, it's that I am making it so, it's that I am somehow manipulating the universe, I'm somehow changing things when that's not really what manifestation is. Manifestation is an attraction to things that already exist. I've frequently talked about, right? Take off the lenses, the glasses, and then you put on like, I got my yellow lens. Oh my God, everything's yellow. Red lens. Oh my God, everything's red, right? It's weird when we put on the lenses. This stuff is all around us already. But by what we are, by what we assume to be true, to kind of stay in line with everything Goddard's been talking about in the law of assumption, if we continue to assume, then we make it so. We create these situations. We create things that you'll be attracted to. One quick example, then we're going straight into it. For a voiceover gig I had, I used to work at a coffee shop, and I would talk to people that just whatever, that, you know, random people, and I'd be like, well, I do voiceover, blah, blah, blah. Well, this one guy comes in and just out of the blue, we're talking, has nothing to do with anything. And he's like, well, what are you kind of into? And I'm like, well, I'm into voiceover. I've got a pretty nice studio. And he was like, you do voiceover? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, I actually do a lot of video work. And he was actually the guy that hooked me up with, I got paid $200 a minute, $200 a minute. Now there's better, but that was rate for this area. And it was a crap ton of money. And it was like a 10-minute project. It was a bunch of money. I made a bunch of money off something that was 10 minutes of words, and I probably spent an hour and a half editing. So 2 hours of work, and I made $2,000. So sometimes you set things in motion, and then the right person pops in front of you, and you just like diarrhea of the mouth. You're like, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, where the frick did that just come from? Oh, interestingly, that was the perfect thing to say. You won't miss it. That's the thing. If I was looking for, I know today is the day I'm going to talk to somebody about voiceover. Who looks like a voiceover person? You're never, ever, ever going to get it right. You just do it. You set the intention. You assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You feel it. It creates this situation. You become it, right? That all this stuff we've been talking about. And then bam, and there you go. So, chapter 21, free will. I keep wanting to say Free Willy. For anyone that's old enough, that should get you a small chuckle, but I keep seeing that every time. The question is often asked, what should be done between the assumption of the wish fulfilled and its realization? Meaning all the dead area in between. So I did all the work today, I woke up and I did my meditation, blah, 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 and it hasn't happened yet. So what do I do? What do I do in between that? How can I make this go faster, right? That's the question everybody asks. What can I do between the fact that I just did an exercise to make it happen faster and it still hasn't happened yet? So obviously that's down the road. What can I do right now? Right now. What about right now? What can I do now? Same thing. So his answer, nothing. Goddard, straight up, one word, period. Nothing. No thing. No thing. It is a delusion that, other than assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you can do anything to aid the realization of your desire. Period. Done. End of story. We could just stop the video right now. That's probably 90% of our problem, right? You think that you can do something, you want to do something, but actually, you can do nothing. The illusion of the free will to do is but ignorance of the law of assumption upon which all action is based. Everything happens automatically. Everything happens automatically. Why? Because of all the work we've done, assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled, like he's just talking about. The act of doing that creates, like he said, moments, situations. It begins a sequence of events. The second you come from that place of the wish fulfilled, you instantly, from right where you are right now, this very second, you start, it's like being in a garden, right? And you got those little stepping stones. So it's like you just stood in the garden from where you are right now. And you're like, all right, my dream's off that way. Lay down a stepping stone, take a step onto it. Lay down the stepping stone, right? Like the steps are now starting to lay themselves out and you're starting to walk down the steps. Sometimes eventful things will happen. Sometimes you're just taking another step. But eventually, you get there through a sequence of steps. A sequence of steps. It might be 2 minutes, might be 5 minutes, might be a year. I don't know how many sequence of steps it requires for life to go from where it's at to where it is. People talk about instant manifestation, sure. But a lot of cases, most of us would probably kill people we know through oopses and manifesting because we got mad at them one day. So most of us aren't ready for that level of commitment, if you will, to your thoughts always being right on the money. So again, sometimes it's a step. Sometimes it's 12 steps before the next thing. Odd number to choose. Sometimes it's other things. And we continue. But, everything happens automatically. Don't forget that. All that befalls you, all that is done by you, happens. This is a beautiful chapter. All that befalls you, all that is done by you, happens. It just does. Your assumptions, conscious or unconscious, direct all thought and action to their fulfillment. To understand the law of assumption, to be convinced of its truth, means getting rid of all the illusions about free will to act. Free will actually means freedom to select any idea you desire. I want to bring up real quick, a lot of people say, is it someone right? Is this the best choice for me? Are they good for me? Are they right? All these things. But a lot of the times, or is it going to work? I'm sorry, that's more akin, right? But a lot of the times it's more of it's a question of, do you want to be with them? It's your choice to select an idea and decide that's what you want. It's an idea. Is one idea better than another idea? Not always. Sometimes it's just two different ideas. You can have a wonderful relationship with Joe, the tow truck driver, or Jim, the stock clerk, or Buffy. No, that's a girl name. Biff. There you go. There's a guy name. Biff, the stockbroker. Right? Like, you could have a relationship with any one of those three. They might be slight variants of each other. They're different people, but ultimately may still lead to the 5 things you've got on your list: security, loving, sensitive, good parent, and whatever, right? Whatever the 5th one is, you can take your pick, right? But all 3 of those dudes fit that, right? So which one do you want? It's your choice. Which one's better? I don't know. What one sounds better to you? Because it's our choice. We're creating this stuff. We don't necessarily care whether, right? I mean, ultimately, anyway, there's obviously good and bad to that. I'm not trying to be totally hyperbolic. I'm trying to stay more in the middle. Yeah, you could be a crazy person trying to manifest someone, not okay, or you could be overly kind and not really looking out for yourself. So a couple ways that could be bad. By assuming the idea already to be fact, it is converted into reality. Beyond that, free will ends and everything happens in harmony with the concept assumed. I can of mine own self do nothing, because I seek not mine own will, but the will of thy Father which hath sent me. In this quotation, the Father obviously refers to God. In an earlier chapter, God is defined as I am. Since creation is finished, the Father is never in a position of saying, I will be. In other words, everything exists in the infinite I am consciousness, can speak only in the present tense. Not my will, but thine be done. Again, one of the main reasons why we go to the place where we're imagining it, from the place of the feeling of the wish fulfilled, is because in that place, there is no time. You are experiencing it right now. It is real right now. So many of us want to see this somehow reality thing too, but you've got to understand that's what creates it. Two, you're experiencing it right now because it is real and it allows it to play out. But so many of us experience that and then want it to immediately be in front of us, like the genie from I Love Jeannie, like, right? Like the little thingy or the nose thing she did or whatever. I don't know. They did, I think, something with the nose, right? Something like that. But I dream a genie, make it magically happen. And that's not quite how things tend to play out. So Goddard continues. I will be is confess that I am not. The Father's will is always I am. Until you realize that you are the Father, there's only one I am. And your infinite self is that I am. Your will is always I will be. I will be. Thy will be done. Your will is I will be. When's it going to happen? I will be. It will be. It's right? It's coming. In the law of assumption, your consciousness of being is the Father's will. The mere wish without this consciousness is the my will. This great quotation, so little understood, is a perfect statement of the law of assumption. It is impossible to do anything. You must be in order to do. And really, what's kind of cool about that, just right off the bat, is the being, when we imagine the thing as the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and we're it already, that whole thing where you got to be it before you can have it. What happens when you do that, when you create it from the feeling of the wish fulfilled? Again, you create those steps, the numbers of sequence of steps from the moment you're located right now. And what those steps are going to be the doings. And the doings are going to pop up naturally, automatically, as he says. They're automatically going to show up in your path. Something to do will occur. And that's how you get to your next step. Your next step is a doing. Okay, the being is what creates the doing. There is no way to get to the being by doing. It doesn't work the other way. And you can't get to your result any faster by doing anything else, because otherwise you're not stepping on the stepping stones, and if you're not stepping on the stepping stones, you're not going where you're supposed to go. So it is impossible to do anything. You must be it in order to do. If you had a different concept of yourself, everything would be different. You are what you are, so everything is as it is. The events which you observe are determined by the concept you have of yourself. If you change your concept of yourself, the events ahead of you in time are altered. But, thus altered, they can form again a deterministic sequence starting from the moment of this changed concept. You are a being with powers of intervention, which enable you, by a change of consciousness, to alter the course of observed events. In fact, to change your future, which, again, I've said many a time, the future's not happened yet. You always have the ability to change it. No future is guaranteed ever until it's your now. It'll become as it becomes. Deny the evidence of the senses and assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Inasmuch as your assumption is creative and forms an atmosphere, your assumption, if it be a noble one, increases your assurance and helps you reach a higher level of being. If, on the other hand, your assumption be an unlovely one, it hinders you and makes your downward way swifter. People have asked before, I want somebody to experience a bad thing because they hurt me. Understand, if you would not want to receive what it is that you are wishing on someone, even if you've already experienced it before, it is not helping you. In fact, the opposite is happening. If, on the other hand, your assumption be unlovely one, it hinders you and makes your downward way swifter. Just as the lovely assumptions create a harmonious atmosphere, so the hard and bitter feelings create a hard and bitter atmosphere. Whatsoever things are pure, just, lovely, of good report, think on these things. This means to make your assumptions the highest, noblest, happiest concepts. There is no better time to start than now. The present moment is always the most opportune in which to eliminate all unlovely assumptions and to concentrate only on the good. As well as yourself, claim for others their divine inheritance. See only their good and the good in them. Stir the highest in others to confidence and self-assertion by your sincere assumptions of their good, and you will be the prophet and their healer, for an inevitable fulfillment awaits all sustained assumptions. Now, again, assuming the best in others, what happens if someone takes advantage of you? There's someone that's very close to me right now that kind of gets taken advantage of because, well, one, they don't know how to say no, which is sort of a problem sometimes. But two, just a very kind, honest person, or honest as they would say, a very kind person that wants to see the good in everyone. There are times where people can. So just understand that if this is occurring and maybe you're attracting people that are taking advantage, once, twice, 3, 4, 5, eventually, you gotta say like, I'm not giving anymore. So saying no sometimes is a thing. But to his point, it is a change within us. If you're experiencing it from others, there's something going on inside us that's causing people like that to come out of the woodwork and suddenly be around there. So it is good for us to work on that. And Goddard continues, 3 more paragraphs, almost there. It's a long one, sorry. You win by assumption what you can never win by force. An assumption is a certain motion of consciousness. This motion, like all motion, exercises an influence on the surrounding substance, causing it to take the shape of, echo, and reflect the assumption. A change of fortune is a new direction and outlook, merely a change in arrangement of the same mind substance, consciousness. If you would change your life, you must begin at the very source with your own basic concept of self. Outer change, becoming part of the organizations, political bodies, and religious bodies, is not enough. Meaning, I got to become something different. I can't just join a group and think I'm going to change the world. I have to change myself. If you want to change the world, look at the man in the mirror, as Michael Jackson says. The cause goes deeper. The essential change must take place in yourself, in your own concept of self. You must assume that you are what you want to be and continue therein. For the reality of your assumption has its being in complete independence of objective fact and will clothe itself in flesh if you persist in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Everyone asks, how long until it manifests? How long do I have to do this? You continue to do it until it becomes fact in the outer world. It's working, it's happening, and by assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you know you're actually putting energy towards it. By being in the energy, by being with the thing that you already want, by being what you already need to be, you'll create the doing from that. When you know that assumptions, if persisted in, harden into facts, then events which seem to the uninitiated mere accidents will be understood by you to be the logical and inevitable effects of your assumption. The important thing to bear in mind is that you have infinite free will in choosing your assumptions, but no power to determine conditions and events. No power. How many of us are trying to make things happen, trying to get them to text you? When you want a relationship, then that's what you're really after, but then you try to manifest them to text you maybe out of sequence. You just want it because you need it, right? But it's not necessarily what the relationship building concept needs. So a lot of times we impart what we want and expect to happen. We want things to happen when ultimately we're on a path. Like if I'm driving up the freeway, right, to go to Sacramento, for example, I've used this example, and I'm on the 5. There's this town that smells horrible. It's like a giant dairy farm, or so. It's freaking horrible. And it's about 10 miles, depending on the wind. It's a ways of just like, oh, Lord. And rolling down the windows doesn't help. Please. It is part of the journey. Sometimes there's aspects of it that may seem a little sour and bitter, but it's part of it. And you just take it as, this is one of the steps I got to make. Not every step on this journey towards this manifestation are necessarily going to be the happiest moments of your life. Some of these steps may be inward evaluation. Maybe realizing that, wow, I really do get angry at him earlier. Like he keeps telling me that, and I just caught myself getting angry at him. It was just like, wow, it was over something silly. What's going on? So sometimes the stepping stones aren't always necessarily ones that we consciously want to rejoice. We should, if we understood what they actually represented, and represented change in ourselves creates major change outside. It's kind of funny. Here's a good way to look at it. I don't know, people talk about like momentum for anyone that's even remotely sciencey oriented, right? But momentum has to do with your mass times your velocity squared, right? You square your velocity, you multiply it times itself, which makes it a very significant number, right? If the velocity goes up a little bit, the fact that you're squaring it makes that number significantly bigger. So a little bit of change in velocity goes a long way in momentum. It's kind of the same with manifesting. Got that same efforts you put forward to it. A little bit goes a long way. By being, the being part is like squared. And the doing kind of happens from that. But it's that intensity of reality. It's that feeling and experiencing it. It's allowing yourself the assumption that this is all working out. It's letting it play out. You can't force it. So many of us are, and you can't. And I honestly think the process of forcing it causes a handbrake. It causes separation. It causes pressure. It's us not understanding the law of assumption. It's us not being patient to let things happen. It's some of the programming maybe from the way, Instagram and all these things. You instantly get likes. You put something out and 30 minutes later, oh my God, I got 150 likes, right? Like it's a different world now. But unfortunately, human relationships don't happen in Instagram time. They don't happen in microwave time. You talk to somebody, you have a conversation, they tend to last 15, 20 minutes sometimes, right? You go to dinner, it's an hour. It just takes time. And most of us want it to happen faster. We've already made up our minds. Why haven't they? And you'll find that's not how people work. People are a little more complex, a little more dinosaur-y than that. And almost to some degree, the ones that jump around feeling to feeling and changing constantly is almost unstable. The important thing to bear in mind is that you have infinite free will in choosing your assumptions, but no power to determine conditions and events. You can create nothing, but your assumption determines what portion of creation you will experience. As I've said many times, it's all happening all around you right now. What type of lens do you have in front of you? That's decided by who you are, what you believe is the case. Like all the things we say change the inside of you, and that changes outside of you. That's why, because it alters that color. It alters the filter. Not necessarily a color. I mean, it's just an easy way to do it. But maybe you see bad people everywhere. Maybe all people with money are horrible. Maybe everybody that drives red cars are jerks. Maybe everybody that has white scarves are horrible people. Like, what filter do you put on? I don't know. But I'll tell you what, I bet you whatever filter it is, you see a lot of that everywhere, don't you? Whatever belief you have is what you probably experience a lot of. So what do you want to experience more of? Change your belief. Make an assumption. Keep doing it until it happens. Keep being in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You want to do something to make it happen quicker? I'll link a video below, and it's one I just recently did. It talks about if you got a few minutes, try this. That is what's a way to do it. And that's exactly what Goddard's talking about. The only thing you can do is to be. That's it. If you're feeling like, what can I do to make this happen faster? Be it. Spend time with the feeling of the wish fulfilled. That's it. That's all you can do. Nothing else. Goddard's words. I gotta say, I think I agree with him completely on this. Dan Radio Style.